last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning ride is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Nice
as simple
ride.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm gonna get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to the Peak Physique Podcast with Andre Adams on the NASM Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome back, guys. I'm your host, Andre Adams. Thanks for joining us for another exciting episode of the NASM Peak Physique Podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest that is actually one of my longtime friends and colleagues in the sport. She was actually part of our NASM PBC content shoot, and we had so many good laughs and times. But welcoming to the show for the very first time, three-time Miss Fitness Olympia champ, Whitney Jones. Welcome to the show, Whitney.
What's up? How are ya?
Doing great. It's nice and cool here in Wisconsin. I hear you guys are still having some hot weather out there in Phoenix area.
We are, but we are just finally this is going to be the first week that we are under 100 degrees. So we hit some crazy record of like 109 days straight, over 100 degrees. So I felt it was necessary to bust out a jacket. I mean, clearly it's getting chilly here.
Hey, we talked about it earlier, right? Another 5 degrees and the gloves are coming out. So you guys got to look out. I love it. That could be a whole episode in itself, though, really, is like how to train, because it really does affect prep, like depending on what climate you're from. I remember training for my first Arnold Classic, and it was obviously dead middle of winter here in Wisconsin. We had this polar vortex where it was like negative 50 degrees with the wind chill. We had 2 feet of snow and ice on the ground. And I'm trying to drive to the gym every day for my fasted cardio, come back home, go back to the gym for my training. It was nuts. So, versus like it's 109 degrees, which is also horrible, right? You feel like you're in an oven all day long. So I think that's another topic for another day.
I'll be honest. I would take our situation any day over you guys. And every Arnold I would do, I would always text my fitness girls and say, how are you guys doing this? Like, in Arizona, I would be freezing and it would take me half an hour to warm up. And it's like being a baby, clearly, because do you guys even warm up at all starting, say, October to, I don't know, April? I feel like you guys turn into straight penguins and you're just these robots. I don't know how you function.
It's challenging, but I do actually appreciate all 4 seasons. Like right now, it's perfect cardio weather for me. It gets uncomfortable like when it's 85, 90 and up, because the humidity is also very high here. So, when it's like a nice cool 60 degrees and you can throw your Olympia jacket on and go for a nice morning jog for your fasted cardio. I love it. It actually keeps me motivated. And, today for you guys that are just joining us, Whitney and I are actually going to cover all kind of good stuff. We just like catching up in general because we don't always get to see each other because we're all so busy with, the sport, competing, coaching, entrepreneurship, you name it. But we're going to dive into some different topics here, starting with prep strategies and tips for all you maybe novice or maybe experienced and seasoned athletes and coaches that are just looking for some tidbits of information. And Whitney, you brought up a topic that I think we'll lead off with that's very exciting to me, was offering what it's like from an athlete's perspective. And you and I can actually speak from athlete or coach perspective, behind the scenes at the big shows, right? When we're talking the Arnold, the Olympia, for a lot of athletes, pros included, that's a dream come true. And not a lot of people are able to experience that, right? That's the top 1% of the sport that are able to experience these things. And I'd love to share some of our own experiences. Think about the weeks leading up to it, the training, the promotion, the preparation, everything that's happening to get ready for that show down the stretch, the travel going to the show. I want you to share some things about tips that you have, traveling to these big shows. And then of course, give them the inside scoop on show day, right? What does that look like? What does it feel like to be backstage at the Arnold or Olympia?
Well, to your point, as an amateur and a fan of the sport, well before I even got my pro card, I thought, I'd go watch the Olympia, and it was just like I was in constant awe of the entire experience, of all the athletes who qualified to step on this prestigious stage. That's the pinnacle of our sport. So to then get my pro card and think, oh my gosh, what's next? Like, is there a shot I could ever step on that stage? And then to actually qualify, my first year that I qualified was 2013. And I thought, wow, I got lucky. So this will never happen again. I'm going to soak it up and enjoy. And, some know my story, but I do the fitness division and I have no formal training. I was not a gymnast growing up. I don't have any of the background that all of the girls I compete against have. So it was kind of like, this was just a fun hobby and I loved it. Never thought I would ever go pro or be any good at it. So for me, that perspective of soaking every minute in, I 100% attribute to my success and actually winning the Olympia because I never had expectations. And so, going into the first show, I for years had followed these athletes and I saw their preps leading up to it. And, there was so much pressure and this stress and you've got to come out on top. Well, going in for your first Olympia or first Arnold, any athlete, I say you've got to enjoy it because again, for many, they may only ever step on that stage one time. For some, they never get that opportunity. So if you're so focused on the pressure and the stress and, winning, you miss out on everything. And that doesn't just go for the big shows. For any athlete, you really, really need to take advantage of every show opportunity and soak it in. I mean, come show day or even peak week, the work is done. You should have been working for months and weeks. And now as a pro athlete, you work year round, but all the work is done in the prep. And when it becomes peak week, that's your time to rest, relax, get your body primed so you can hit the stage and be at your best. That's the time to celebrate, is to showcase all your hard work, your improvements. So for me going in, it was just like, I'm going to enjoy it. My first Olympia, it was like I was a kid at Disneyland. I mean, I remember coming off stage and I got second call out, which I was shocked. I was going in like, I am absolutely prepared to get dead last and I'm going to be stoked because this is the Olympia. I mean, there's no expectations, right? Well, I got second call out. And again, you know me, I have no filter. I don't behave in the way of normal people anyways. I came off the stage and, all the other divisions are lining up. Everyone's like, were you center first call out? I was like, no. They're like, why are you so excited? Yeah. I was literally celebrating. Yes. Oh my God, I got second call out. And then people are like, you don't do that. And I'm like, well, but again, I was enjoying it. I loved the experience and there was no nerves. Now going into year 2, obviously there's a lot more nerves. Mm-hmm. And I found I wasn't enjoying my prep as much. So I decided at that point, going into my second Olympia, I've got to have that same mindset. And so as a coach, I always try to emphasize to the athletes, you are the only one who can put pressure on yourself. If you go into a show and there's all this pressure, that's because you allowed it. No one else is doing that. No one can make you feel pressure. You have to allow it. So if you can control your emotions, if you go in with the right perspective, you're going to have the absolute best outcome. Not only is it fun, but you enjoy everything. I still remember literally every minute of every prep. Not prep, I shouldn't say that. That's exaggerating. But when it becomes like Olympia or Arnold week, as soon as I arrive in Vegas or Florida, or if it was in Ohio for the Arnold, as soon as I land, it is like, this is my vacation to enjoy everything. And I truly do soak it all up. That's the biggest thing, because backstage, there's a lot of fun and you're amongst the best of the best. Why not take that opportunity to, be next to someone that you've idolized, possibly have a conversation with them as long as they're not in their zone. But to be amongst the greatest, and you're there as an athlete, there's fans out there who would die to meet you. Go talk to everybody.
Right.
You realize we get so tunnel vision with prep that we forget the bigger picture of what it's like to be a fan or to be an amateur. And as a pro athlete, you can kind of let it all go to your head, to be honest. So you have to constantly remind yourself, hey, when I walk down the street, nobody knows if I'm a pro athlete, if I'm a, first time newbie hitting the NPC stage, if I've won the Olympia. No one knows, no one cares. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to represent you in the best manner you can, represent the sport and the federation. And then, of course, experience it to the greatest ability that you can as an elite athlete. And that's one of the craziest things. I mean, backstage, it is such a production that nobody realizes. I mean, even I've qualified now for 11 Olympias. I am still blown away every year that I go and I see the massive production, all the different media outlets. I mean, all the technology behind the scenes to put on this massive event. Also, we can step on stage for worldwide attention. So it's just, if you kind of take a step back and look at it and go, my God, I got here. If you're not enjoying it, what is the point? Why work hard to become a pro? Why work hard to get to the Olympia if all you care about is the outcome? And so that is a big part of what I think sets different athletes apart, is where if you're just focusing on the outcome and if you win, then what is the end game? What are you really achieving and getting? Secondly, if you are just soaking it all up and you are enjoying it, you're going to have much better memories, experiences, because let's be honest, you can't hit the stage forever. There's a window of time as an athlete, so you got to enjoy it. And that's what sets true athletes apart.
I love it. Guys, if you're just joining us, this is the Peak Physique Podcast, and you've got one of my good friends in the sport, 3-time Miss Fitness Olympia champ, Whitney Jones, on the podcast for the first time. And we're talking about prep strategies, experiences, and all kinds of different tips for you competitors and coaches out there. And Whitney, I'm going to dive into a couple key points you hit on that kind of popped out in my head as you were talking. One thing is that the stress that we perceive, especially with big shows, and that's always going to be relative. For you and I, the big show is obviously going to be something like the Arnold or Olympia. For a novice competitor, their first show is a big show, but once they get established as an amateur, then maybe it's a national show, right? And that can be very intimidating or scary, or their pro debut, right? So one thing that I would give, piece of advice I would give to newer competitors is that stress is usually self-imposed, right? So to Whitney's earlier point, don't think about these big shows as big shows. Just think about them as another day. It's another show. And remember why you started, right? You started because you love this process of attaining your health and fitness goals, your physique goals. Sure, we want the outcomes and we feel more validated when we win. However, you got to look introspectively and make sure that you're enjoying that process, all the small little steps that add up to those big results at the end. That's where the magic happens at. So don't lose sight of that, even with a big show. And then 2 more things that you hit on that I'm going to recap is really being grateful and being present, right? When we step back, we can place dead last in a show. But you know what? At the end of the day, if we step back and say, hey, I was able to do something that I really love at a really high level, and I'm healthy, right? I've got my support circle of people that I've inspired maybe, and now they want my help getting in shape. So being grateful of the opportunities to do what we love, no matter what the outcome is, and then being present. So we want to soak up every last moment of those experiences, because Whitney, as you and I know, no matter how hard you try to remain present, time kind of blurs it, right? And it's like, you know what? That just means I got to do it again so I can remember it.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Yeah. So, it's a lot.
Don't seem happy. Sometimes I can tell you countless athletes where I would look at them backstage and it's like, gosh, are you sure you're even having fun? Like they're so nervous or they're so worked up and they're practicing their posing. And it's like, then you see the other group backstage who they're just relaxing and they're laughing amongst the other athletes and, you know, enjoying the experience. Everything we do is about truly kind of enjoying the moment, being present. And if you can't, that's on you. Either you didn't do what you should have done and you're worried about not being ready, or you're allowing this anxiety, nerves, stress, pressure to just cripple you. And you know, again, that it happens to the best of us. To say that you don't get nervous, you know, that's craziness, right? I personally, as an athlete, I know I've grown throughout the years where I can feel it coming on and I have to literally take a step back and go, wait a second, why am I feeling this way? What am I doing to myself? Because again, we control all of it. And it's like, what am I nervous about? Am I nervous about not winning? Again, like as a champ, that is a true thought. You know, it's like they always say it's hard to defend your title, 100%. Because as the underdog, everyone's cheering for the underdog. If you don't win, you weren't the champ. So it wasn't expected. When you're at the top, there's only one place to go. So I talked to a lot of people after my first Olympia as I prepped for my second one going, I've enjoyed this journey. I don't want who I am as an athlete, my strategies, my protocol on peak week and day of show to change. But how do I not let this get to me? Because of course, everyone wants to take the champ down, but it's everything we can control as athletes. And so I had to go back to going, when I went in for my first Olympia, what were my expectations and what was my excitement? When I went in for that year that I won the first title for the first time I won the Olympia, was I focused on winning it? No, I was focused on me bringing my best, performing the routine, nailing the skills and the flips and the tricks, really polishing my posing and really showcasing all the improvements. So when you do that, you take yourself out of the end game. And it's like, you got to feel like you are the champ before you hit the stage. And that's something I realized. I don't want the judges to validate whether or not I won or lost. I to know. I determine that. And there's plenty of times I've stepped off the stage and said, I didn't win. I could have done more. I could have done better. And then that lights that fire to try harder. But I never allowed the judges to validate whether I won or lost, because that was up to me. And it made it so much easier to go, you know what, at the end of the day, no matter how I place, I'm going to come home. My boys are still going to love me. I'm going to have all my same friends. I'm going to go to my same job the next day. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. So what is it that everyone is so worked up about and fearful? We've all worked hard, but there's one winner, and it doesn't always work in your favor. So once you kind of put that into perspective, you go, I got this. I'm doing the best I can, whether it's an NPC show, national show, pro show, or the Olympia. Bring your best. And however it shakes out, know that our joy is in continuing to improve. And that's all that matters. We're always a work in progress.
That's right. And if you have followed me long enough, you guys know that we've got a saying, and it's ain't done yet, right? That's that infinite mindset. It's constantly improving and bringing a better version of yourself on and off stage, right?
Yeah.
To Whitney's point, it doesn't really matter if you place first or dead last. The second you leave the stage, your goals and the things that you need to improve, you're gonna be doing the same stuff, right?
Yep.
And it's like, it's a continuum. It's never gonna end. I mean, even let's take Ronnie Coleman, right? At the end of Ronnie's career, he was still working on the same things, right? Still trying to get a little bit harder, a little bit bigger, a little bit tighter waistline, you know, but better X-frame. It's like, you're still gonna be chasing those things. So that's the ain't done yet mindset. And I think everyone can, you know, learn a little bit from this conversation for sure. And, you know, this is actually a good segue for us too, Whitney, because we talked about how we conduct ourselves and how we respond to losing. And I want to talk about it in both contexts, right? After we win a big show, after we lose a big show, because this is something that I've had to really, really focus on developing a lot of my athlete mindsets. You know, for some people, it's just autonomous, right? You're a competitor. We're killers on stage. We're killers in the gym, right? And you're going to be relentless no matter what. but not everyone has that mindset. For me, if I lose or I feel like I failed, I ask myself, did I do everything I possibly could to the best of my potential? And if the answer is no, I know I've got work to do.
Yeah.
But even in the other scenario where I did everything I possibly could, I felt like maybe I should have won this show. My mindset is always like, I'll show you. I'll be back. Right. Now let me take it to a whole nother level because I'm going to show you. So it's maintaining your integrity as a professional. I do see it on the pro level too, but especially with the amateurs that are maybe new to the sport. I think everyone feels like they trained harder than everyone else. And when shows don't go their way, they don't win right away. It's like, the coaches or the judges in politics or the other athlete had a sponsor that was involved in the show. And it's like, there's no ownership or accountability. And I feel like sportsmanship sometimes is lacking. So this is something that I want you to touch on too, because you're also a coach of many athletes. And I feel like this is probably a significant portion of our jobs is making sure that athletes understand how to respond to winning and losing with integrity and sportsmanship.
Yep. I have this saying that I've kind of been known for in my circle and clients. And it's because I've seen it so often. Andre, I know you have too. When someone, we all have taken multiple kicks in the face where it's like you said, you're going, gosh, I just feel like should have placed a little better. Doesn't matter what you think. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And once it's announced, you got to accept it and move on. Whether it worked in your favor or not, it's not changing. But true athletes can take that, especially if it's a massive kick in the teeth and you're like, man, that hurt. But what does it do? Does it light your fire, or do you go into this pity party of excuses and bitterness? Because that, to me, when the first time someone takes it, how do they respond? And if they can respond with grace, I'm like, there's an athlete. Those are my kind of people. People that make excuses, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Heck, I have been in 2 shows where they completely screwed up the scorecards. Placings were announced and it was what it was. And then they posted it and I placed lower than the actual scorecards because they made a mistake. Who cares, right? It's not fixed, but either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You got to take it for what it is and then go, all right, either way, even when I've won Olympia, the next day, what am I doing after every show? I make a list of what are my improvements? What did I want to improve on from my routine skills, physique, posing? I critique myself and it's back to the drawing board. Win or lose. So the thing is, I think a lot of people don't understand the big picture of the sport. And they go in and, they're used to their family and friends saying, oh my gosh, you look amazing and you're beautiful and you'll win and you'll win and you'll win. That doesn't matter because, again, whatever the sport and your division's criteria is calling for, you may be beautiful, fit, and amazing. That doesn't mean you're what the division is calling for. So if you're not fitting the criteria, it's not going to work. So then you need to modify your plan. But the one thing I say, I've had several athletes who they have a bad showing, they don't get the placing they want, and they're on the verge of quitting. And it's like, okay, so let me just ask you, you're going to quit the sport. You're done. You're pissed. You're mad. You still going to go to the gym on Monday? Well, yeah, I love going to the gym. Where's your drive going to come from then? Because for however long, whether it's a short-term goal or you've been an athlete forever, it's easier to stay accountable to your goals and your training when you have a goal. So sure, if you want to quit, but what's your next goal? Because are you going to stop going to the gym? No. Well, what's going to keep it exciting then? And just asking that a question alone, people go, well, let me think about it. And it's like, yeah, you're just angry right now. And that's okay. You got to be human. You got to process the emotions. But you also have to realize this is a subjective sport. It's not a race. We're not the Olympics with track and field where there's a finish line and you go clear cut winner. That is not our sport. You got to know it going in. So if you can't handle that, then this isn't the sport for you and you might as well get out now. But otherwise, we love going to the gym. We love being active. We love to see improvements in our body. And you ask anyone who has quit the sport, if they had a hard time staying accountable to their fitness goals, their physique goals, when they didn't have that show in mind. Now, like I said, we can't be athletes stepping on stage all the time. So eventually, whether it's retirement or you're like, I need to take some time off, you got to have another goal that keeps you focused, motivated, and inspired in the gym. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, I don't want people to just from a bad show or a bad placing give up when there's so much talent. They just need to realize, hey, this is the name of the game. This is our sport, and it needs to drive you to go, I'll show you. I got more in the tank, and I'm coming back better, stronger, more improvements, more talent, whatever it is, work harder. That's what it boils down to. If you're an athlete, dig deep. You got it in you anyways, and you're just going to come back stronger. And again, you get kicked in the teeth again, go back to the drawing board, work harder. That's what it always boils down to. If you want to be a true champion in the sport, it goes back to work. There's no shortcuts.
Right. And then, to that same point, right, it's working harder. It's implementing that feedback from your coaches and judges. And, there may come a time where you have to be realistic with yourself too and say, you know what, maybe I don't have the best genetics for this particular division. It'd be no different than me. My story was going from pro men's physique to classic. And I was very competitive in classic too. I feel like I was probably more dominant in men's physique, which is why I'm back there here in 2024. But can you imagine me trying to say and put it in my head that, hey, I want to place well in 212 or open bodybuilding. And that's just not really what my frame structure of genetics would allow. So no matter how hard I work, no matter what my plan and protocol, and no matter what the judge, it's just not the right fit. The criteria is not a good fit for me. So you do have to come back to that sometimes. And you won't know until you push really hard and you give it a legitimate chance, right? But definitely don't get discouraged by those losses. Give yourself space to feel a certain way for a couple days with the understanding that you're going to feel totally different a week from the show.
Yeah.
Right. So you never want to make any irrational, dumb decisions coming out of a show because there's no logic. It's all emotion, right? So you might be pissed off at the placing and say, you know what? I quit, or I'm going to fire my coach, or I'm going to do this or that. It's like, give yourself that space to feel that way and then come back, right? Stick to your routine, your habits, and then collect yourself and rethink where you're going to go next.
Yep.
The next things we're going to dive into, this is a fun one too. I always like sharing this because, some of these are anecdotes and obviously with NASM, we love to be evidence-based, but as part of the evidence-based triage, some of that is actual physique outcomes, right? Through coaching or through us as athletes ourselves. And when we're thinking about those physique outcomes, let's tie it back to some nutrition and training strategies that have helped you and I, Whitney, to ascend to the top of the sport as both athletes and then, also with very high performing athletes as ourselves as coaches. So let's talk about like what things would you say are staples in your nutrition programming? Things that for you, every Olympia, like this has got to be part of my diet. Like I carb cycle, I'm ketogenic, I do this. What things have helped you? And then I'll share some of mine.
Well, I kind of know what you're hinting at because Andre
he's a snacker too. I'm gonna snitch on you.
Yeah. And I will say this, I will little asterisk by it, but I have worked for a long time to get my metabolism to be as efficient as it is. And of course, I'm in the fitness division. So a ton of what I do when I'm in prep is hours of routine training, cardio, plus my workouts, plus mobility, stretching. So I am burning a crap ton of calories. So I can eat a lot. Now, granted, I do eat healthy for a majority of my meals, but I eat equal to most bodybuilders. It's just the way I've been. And like I said, it hasn't always been this way. So way back before I ever even got started in the sport, I couldn't eat a carb without looking like a blowfish. Well, now my body loves carbs and it tolerates a ton of them. So I eat my normal, fish, rice, each meal. I eat a ton of carbs. I keep my fats pretty low unless they're really bad fats. So in order to get the amount of calories I needed to hang on to my muscle in order to not lose it with the hours of cardio and routine training, I actually do cheat meals at least twice, sometimes 3 times a week, which is like burger or fries, milkshake, whatever, where it's just high calorie, high dense end of the day meals when I'm doing my routine training. And then my body works great with sugar. So my staple going into prep is I have 1 to 2 donuts every single day.
Yeah.
And that starts about 8 weeks out. And then going into peak week, I'm lean. My body becomes this machine, this furnace that's just burning, burning, burning. So I do about 6 donuts a day. I actually increase my calories, believe it or not, 2 weeks out, then again, 1 week out and going into show, because at that point, I literally just start whittling away. I just start losing the muscle. So the last several years, I am known to be walking around Olympia and I have a bag of donuts. Like I'm talking big 6. Some days I've done 8 donuts. So I've been at the Meet the Olympias press conference, and the last 3 times I've been at the press conference, I have my meal and my donuts that I'm eating on stage. And again, it works for me. What I tell people is you've got to find what works for you. That's why working with a coach is crucial. That's how I discovered that my body actually could handle sugar. It helps me be tight. If I, even at this point, I'm not in prep and during my off season, I can't go more than 48 hours without sugar because my body just starts getting soft. And then I eat 1 meal with sugar and I start tightening up. My muscles pop, but that's my body. And I actually have 2 other clients who we've discovered that works well for them. But, everyone's prep is different. All the clients I coach, everything is different. Nobody's plans are the same. If you're getting these cookie cutter diets, you got to find a new coach, because it's about teaching you how your body responds. And if you're not understanding the nutrition, obviously you need to dive into it. You yourself should be the experiment, trial and error. You know how your body feels. For example, if I eat sweet potatoes, my body does not, my stomach bloats up. I could eat rice. I could eat 6 to 8 cups of rice a day in prep, and my stomach will be flat as ever. But if I eat a sweet potato, literally 3 ounces of sweet potato, I look bloated, like I still need to diet a lot. So you got to figure out what works for your body. And the only way you can do that is through trial and error. Do it in your off season. See what fuels you energy wise. Maybe there's certain things that make you crash. What keeps you feeling full longer? Everything is a process. I've been an athlete my whole life, and then getting into this sport, I've been into this sport for 15 years. So all those early years leading up, it was all trial and error to figure out what works. So my diet, I know, is totally different from most. I'm sure it's totally different from you. And more importantly, my diet has been different every prep, every big show. It's like I look at my Olympia prep over these last years, 11 years, it's totally different every time. But that's because my body's constantly in a different place too. Activity level in a different place.
I want to switch to, it's too bad they don't have a men's fitness division. I want to eat donuts every day.
Oh my gosh.
I get donuts one time a week right now. Right now, Whitney, I'm about 5.5 weeks out from Kazakhstan. Me and Ashley Kaltwasser are flying back out there for the Chris Minnis, center podium seminar, and then obviously we're competing. But so right now I'm doing actually 5 really, really low carb, almost ketogenic days, which is rare for me, but I only had a small window of time between the Tokyo Pro Super Show to this one. And this is my first year back in like 4 years. So I wanted to really, really get skin tight. And so for you guys that don't understand what Whitney's talking about, in order to come in and looking full and dry and hard, you really need to be fat-free first, right? So that body fat percent needs to be extremely low. And then once we start to fill up those muscles with glycogen, you start to get that hardness, that dryness, that density, right? And that fullness. So the skin is much tighter. I always equate it to blowing up a balloon, right? If you have a deflated balloon, there's no glycogen in it. It's going to look a little bit soft and floppy, but once you fill it up with air or water, right, it's going to expand and make that skin nice and tight. But the key is coming in fat-free. And so working with your coach to figure out what that diet strategy needs to look like to get you lean for your division. Whitney's division requires almost like not almost, it's exactly like a high performance athlete. So you're juggling the physique outcome with this high performance output, right? And to fuel that, you're burning about 90% glucose, which means higher amounts of carbohydrates, especially around the workouts, fast digesting carbohydrates, right? Plenty of amino acids. And then Whitney, for you, I'm going to send you some information, actually a recent podcast that we did right here with one of my partners, Dr. Indy Vasquez. We also just gave this same seminar in Hawaii at the Sean Ray Classic promo. And we talk about leveraging blood oxidation type and then HTMA, which is hair tissue mineral analysis for physique athletes. And I actually did this for my own prep this year, and it's going to blow your mind. We've done about a dozen of my athletes, and we got 3 out of 4 pro cards with the first batch at USA. So we're onto something here. But what we'll discover for you, I would guess you are a fast oxidizer like myself. Your body. So fast oxidizer means, think about your thyroid and your adrenals as a fire, right? Fires oxidize minerals. And for us, if we're fast oxidizers, it's oxidizing these minerals at an extremely high rate. Usually have a high metabolism with that. And we're able to get away with, a little bit more aggressive dieting and things like that. But this can ultimately change the way that you recalibrate your diet, your macronutrition, to align with your blood oxidation type. And then the second thing is really the mineral analysis. So that's going to show any toxicities or deficiencies and then imbalances that are affecting thyroid, adrenals, liver, kidney, you name it, right, throughout the whole body. And these are things that you can use as evidence to ultimately influence your physique outcomes and feel better along the way. So it's going to impact hormones and everything else. But I'll definitely send you the information and, also the most recent podcast episode we did. I'd love to get you one. We'll even do one for free just to see, because now I'm curious. I'm willing to bet that you are a fast oxidizer.
Oh, I want to know now. The thing is, like, people have to constantly be aware of new technology, new strategies. And again, as an athlete yourself, you got to advocate for yourself, as well as work with people who are constantly trying to bring new information, new strategies, new technology. So I love that stuff. I'm all in. I would love to.
Yeah, well, I will get you set up. And then me and you, maybe we'll do a follow-up episode or an IG live, because it's a ton of fun. We're actually doing some for our December 7th event when we have Ronnie and Drea Shaw, Cass Gillis. So we're going to be doing a few of theirs and breaking down the results. I want to know, like, maybe we'll find some common denominators among all these Olympia champs and say, hey, that's the recipe, right?
That's kind of cool to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it. Another thing I want to touch on too, before I forget, is things we wish we knew when we started. So this will be an excellent one to share with our audience. Is there, like, what's the 1 or 2 things that, man, I wish I knew that when I started? It would have saved me so much time or, accelerated my learning curve in the sport.
Outside of mindset, which we kind of covered, that's some of the important stuff. I wish, I would have early on had the mindset now of, I'm going to do the best I can within reason. That's all I can control. But we already kind of discussed some of that. The other thing that I personally try to tell a lot of people, because again, it's what I personally went through. I did not realize how crucial and important, like preparing your body for every workout and being proactive, like proper warm-up, proper stretching, as well as recovery. I've obviously, I've had so many injuries. I mean, I've broken literally almost every bone in my body. I've had 18 surgeries. I broke my neck, tore my ACL. I mean, heck, at the last Olympia, I dislocated my shoulder, tore my rotator cuff, and broke the collarbone on stage. So clearly I'm not a newbie when it comes to injuries. Had I known now what I wish I would have known then about how to really listen to your body. Our bodies scream at us a lot. And that's trying to say, hey, I know you're trying to push. I know you're a pro athlete. I know you're trying to be at the elite level, but you got to pull back. Rest is underrated. And I never realized that. It's like the more you push, the better you're going to be. Wrong. Your body needs to recover. Your body needs those rest days. Cold plunge. body work, especially at the pro level. If you're not getting body work to, release the muscles, get rid of those adhesions, work out those muscle imbalances, you're not going to stand apart on the pro stage, because at the pro stage, it's the best of the best. So when you look on stage and you say a front shot of the top first call out, and you're the one with the discombobulated quads because they haven't been stripped out properly, well, guess what? Boom, move to the end of the line. Out you go. No longer you're in the center. So little things like that matter, but it also keeps your body primed to be at that elite level. Again, warming up is not fun. Nobody's like, I love stretching, or I have not met those people. But you have to do it. And you got to do it properly for whatever you're training that day, your style of training. And if you're unfamiliar with what type of warm up and stretching, active, dynamic you need to do, then you need to consult with someone who knows how to teach you so that you can keep your body healthy, safe, injury free. I know personally, I could have avoided a lot of things in my life in regards to injuries had I had the knowledge and the tools that were at my fingertips. I just didn't know how important it was early on in my career.
Yeah, I'd have to agree 100% with you on that, Whitney. It's like, I don't think I understood, or maybe I did understand. And, as a young male athlete, especially, the ego can tend to get in there. And especially when you're super strong, you feel invincible. And eventually, these things can lead to muscle imbalances and ultimately injuries. So doing that preventative work, really prioritizing those recovery strategies, and, making sure that you're setting your body up for long-term success. Yeah. I'd say one smaller thing that probably I wish I would have known earlier, even back before my bodybuilding career when I was a power lifter, was the importance of carbohydrates, and the fact that if, when you look at the variables of like diet, training, cardio, diet is always going to be king, right? Yeah. That's the most significant lever you can pull. Training is second. You put them together and now you get this, right? 1 + 1 = 3 all of a sudden. So yeah. I wish I understood those concepts sooner. I always knew the protein importance and amino acids. I was the kid that would read all the muscle magazines and go to GNC and figure out what I needed at the time. But I never understood the importance of like that insulin response and, all the signaling inside the muscles and stuff until later, once I was fully into bodybuilding. So those kind of things, for sure, a good prep coach like ourselves can certainly help accelerate that learning curve for you guys. And then I know we're running a little short on time, so we're going to do kind of a blitz Q&A with you, Whitney. You don't even know the questions I'm going to ask.
I love it. I'm in. Come on.
We actually inadvertently, I think we answered one of them, but I'm just going to go. So these will be quick hitters. The biggest one, I think the first one we kind of touched on, biggest injury or setback you've overcome. I know this one.
Definitely breaking my neck. I mean, by far, that was the hardest. Hardest recovery. Obviously, I have a 12-piece metal cage that will always be in my neck. But hey, you can't see scars, so I can move. But that was the hardest.
Give them some context. How close to the Olympia were you when that happened?
So that was actually I broke my neck before the Arnold. I went and got the MRI. I didn't know how bad it was. So this was just weeks. I knew I couldn't use my arm. I thought it was my shoulder. So I got the MRI because someone said, I think you hurt your neck. Mm-hmm. I did the Arnold and got the results afterwards. And they were like, are you in pain? I'm like, it's unbearable. They're like, what the hell are you doing? Had I known I had a broken neck at that time, but again, it's like, you don't get it. So then I obviously immediately had surgery. So that was pretty rough, but it was really close right before I was doing a head spin because I do break dancing, and I went to flip off and land in a splat, and you're supposed to hit it at a certain point, and I went too early and cracked, boom, broke my neck.
So I would agree. I think that's probably the most challenging injury you could possibly overcome, and in between shows and having competed. That's just a wild story, but you know what? It makes for great stories later on in life. So
yeah, totally. I survived.
Exactly. And then came back and won Olympia multiple times. So
yeah,
The next one I got, let's do, this is always a good one. HIIT or LIST cardio, right? So high intensity interval training or low intensity steady state. Yours is probably going to be a little different because you're also a fitness athlete, but just for your normal cardio, what do you prefer? Or what do you program for your athletes?
Personally, I always wake up and do steady state, just walking cardio in the morning. But my go-to is HIIT. That's where I like the athlete comes out, and I create crazy circuits because for me, that's my creative outlet. I feel like I got to work out. I want to feel like I just got hit by a truck after my HIIT sessions. So those are my go-to. That's where I thrive. That's where I feel alive. I love to prescribe that for some of my clients if that's their ability, and as long as it's going to work within their body and not hamper their results, because again, what they're eating and how their body can handle it, it's not always the best recipe, but for me, it works. And even off season, I do HIIT training all the time.
Yes, your personality just speaks HIIT training to me. So if I had to guess, I'm like, Whitney's going to be HIIT training. And remember, right, we talked about burning a lot of glucose, high insulin sensitivity. And what does HIIT training do? Well, 90% of that fuel source is glucose and carbs. And so those donuts, we're putting them to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Next one I got for you. Easy one. How many times on average do you train each muscle group per week on prep?
So I don't ever train legs. My quads dominant, so I don't ever train legs. I do hit glutes, typically just a couple exercises very lightly, about 3 times a week. Other than that, it's alternating shoulder back, shoulder back, shoulder back. That's it. So my training is kind of boring, but it's just because I came out of the womb with quads, and I need to keep everything balanced out. My body does not like muscle up top, so I have to work to build muscle up top. And then I need to make sure my quads don't overpower. So my training split is boring.
Right. And we'll add to that too. And I actually didn't know that you don't train compounds or legs at all, just a little glute iso. So that's that speaks volumes to, again, how individualized and hyper specific plans programming needs to be to fit criteria, right? Because you could hit those and make your physique even more impressive, but then it might be even further away from the criteria than you're looking for. So no, that's fascinating. I think for me, mine on prep, I try to hit each muscle group 2 times a week on average, a little bit extra on lagging areas, moderate volumes, we'll call it, anywhere from 20 to 25 sets. Typically some days, if it's like a lighter day or an ISO day, maybe even 30 to 32 sets in that training session, spread out across 1 or 2 muscle groups. Off season for me, I actually drop down to usually 1. So I'll change my split where I'm just doing chest, I'm just doing shoulders, I'm just doing arms or back. And then what I'll do is hit those muscles really hard, a lot more heavyweight, because I'm more of an ectomesomorph. So my body is going to respond to the moderate volumes, heavyweights. And then I'll touch up those lagging areas an extra 1 or 2 times per week, right? Maybe it's an asymmetry, or, if it's, let's take the legs, right? If your quads are dominant, but the glute hams are lagging, I might touch those up a little bit extra on that week.
Yeah.
The next one, you're going to love this question, and I think this might be the last one I have for you today, is what is Whitney Jones' favorite cheat meal?
Oh, God, it's so many.
Okay, give me your, I figured you'd have more than one. Give me your top 2 to 3 go-to cheat meals, but one of those got to be king.
Well, so typically it's a burger, fries, like just gnarly, super dirty, everything on it. I mean, talk about the worst thing you could probably order on the menu. That's me. That's my jam. I love that. I don't know. I eat them regularly, but I like chicken, whitefish, turkey primarily. So my body then does crave like the burgers, and you can't have a burger without fries. Let's be real. That's just not fair. So definitely that. Sushi would probably be my second without a doubt. I could eat anyone under the table with sushi. And then sometimes I like to just go completely ham on desserts, from Physique to brownies to, cakes and cupcakes and ice cream. I mean, I like it all. I don't discriminate on sugar. So
yeah. Hey, you guys probably think that Whitney's exaggerating, but I can personally tell you that this girl does not play. Her snack game is on point. I've witnessed it. And you know what? You and I actually had some sushi together a couple years ago.
Yes.
I want to say, was it LA after the PBC shoot?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a story for another time. We made you bust out the figure or the fitness suit and go through some stunts without warming up that day. You know,
right.
So we earned that sushi and that cheat meal that day for sure.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
All right. Well, Whitney, what are you most looking forward to at Olympia? Because, you know, obviously I'll be there and hopefully we can connect. But what are you most excited about for Olympia 2024 before we wrap here?
It's the 60th anniversary. Like, that's nuts, right? So I know they have some crazy things in store. Olympia for me it's like a big reunion of all my friends that I finally get to see and connect with. So gosh, I have so many favorite parts. I'm going to be at BSN. I'm one of their athletes doing autographs at their booth. I'll be doing some of the commentary for Olympia. I'll be backstage with the athletes. I'm just excited for all of it, to be honest. So I'll definitely come try to find you and catch up with you and see you in person, because I miss this, hearing your voice and seeing you. I got to have my big Andre hug.
That's right. And you know what? I still give myself one really big cheat meal a week. And my top two are actually the same as yours. Huge burger and fry and sushi number 2. So you know what? Maybe if the timing works out, maybe we'll have an epic cheat meal together. You know, I've only got a few weeks between then and Kazakhstan. So I'll be looking forward to it. But Whitney, let's tell the audience where they can find you on social media.
You can find me easiest on Instagram, Whitney Jones _IFBB Pro. And then, of course, that feeds to my Facebook. But almost everything I've been doing has been on Instagram. And just forewarning, I like to do shenanigans and lots of goofy stuff and post funny memes. So hopefully you have a sense of humor. If not, just keep scrolling.
I promise you guys will enjoy the content, especially when you get you and Alex together. That's the funniest stuff.
Totally.
All right, guys. Well, you guys know where to find me. Obviously, on Instagram, it's going to be Andre Adams _official. We've got my email is trainingbydre@gmail.com, and then the website, which is andreadamsofficial.com. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in with myself and the champ, Miss Whitney Jones. Until next time on the Peak Physique Podcast, we will see you then.